Welcome to the Truth Reveal podcast. We want to introduce you and just say that we are here where we host conversations that relate in order to reconcile as we uncover God's truth. We will examine relevant topics pertaining to the church, race relations, gender, pop culture, and current events in politics. We will explore different perspectives and extract the underlying truth. We wanted to give you our vision first thing today, just because we're going to do something that we actually did on the first uh, intro podcast, which was tell you a little bit about ourselves, introduce ourselves once again. I'm April Rivers. I'm the mommy of the group. I have two beautiful sons, and and as we said before, we're all friends from college. I wanted to tell you kind of what I do for a living. I'm an administrative assistant for a nonprofit organization. And I'm going to tell you one fun fact about me, or interesting fact. I just celebrated my birthday on April 8th. And we have three generations in my family that were born on April 8th. I was
Wow.
born on my mother's birthday.
Okay.
And then my youngest son was born also on April 8th. So we got April 8th, 1957, April 8th, 1978, and April 8th,
Wow.
2012. Hallelujah.
Wow.
And your name is April, ain't that
And my
something?
name is April. April Rivers, yes.
Ooh.
So, that's my little fact. Whoever wants to go next.
Okay. Well, this is Holly Harris. What was the question again? Lord, I done forget
Basically, we're
already.
introducing ourselves and
Okay.
we're just giving them a little more of what we did in the first one. Our name, what we do for our occupation, and just whatever one fun thing you want to share about yourself.
Okay. Well, I work at a public defender's office. It's very interesting work, as you may it can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what's a fun fact? I guess let's see. I mean, I'm the baby girl of five children, and when I was a child, we had a choir because I'm a singer, but I started singing as a child, and we would call the Harris Five. So this
Hey, hey,
not to
hey.
that's
not
that's
to
a
be confused.
With the
not to be
Jackson
confused with
Five.
the Jackson Five, but yeah, we would sing at all the little church, almost like the Clarksons. We won't on that level,
Oh,
okay,
Come
nowhere
on,
near that
Clark. Come
level.
on, Clark.
But
Come
you
on,
know how in
April.
the movie where they was, at the different conventions and stuff singing, we would do that
Yeah.
growing up or whatever. I
okay.
wish I was in the
Awesome.
Clark sisters. Yeah,
Awesome. Look, I didn't even know that about you. Singing at the different conventions, the Harris Five.
yeah, we
All
were.
right.
Okay, you traveling on
Oh,
your three
traveling at a
city
young
tour
age,
at a young
but
age.
going to the nations.
Hey, glory to God.
Telling them
Glory to
about
God.
Jesus. Yes.
Ah, was
Uh,
it that was it? Okay, all right, go sweet.
oh, well, sweet. My name is Latricia Peak, aka Sweet. Sweet is a nickname for a living. I am a child protective services social worker. Y'all pray my strength.
Bless her heart,
And
Lord.
I mean, the title alone says it all. And one fun fact about me is that I am a diehard Trekkie fan. I love all things Star Trek
Lord
and
Jesus.
sci-fi, from the books to the movies to the series.
And I know it right well because we used to be
Amen.
roommates. Father
Uh,
Jesus.
you
Oh, that
love
she
what
kept
you love.
trying to get me
You
to
love
watch
what
Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, this
I
thing too
tried. I
long.
tried to bring culture to her life, but she refused. She didn't want to
you
receive
didn't
it, so
receive it.
she
I
didn't receive
understand.
it. It would.
I
It was gonna
understand.
bless her whole life.
Oh, Lord Jesus. I don't think I've seen all of them or
That's
even got through the
blasphemous.
first one.
Let me tell
Blasphemous.
you something. Watching Lord of the Rings is that take a such special type because I watched one of them and that thing was about 2 days long.
Literally. Okay.
But it's so engaging. There's so much spiritual truth to
Oh,
be extracted.
Oh, well, you
my
got the
goodness.
gifting to receive that and enjoy that. Well, all right, ladies.
Mm.
So we told a little bit about ourselves, and one other thing that me, Holly, and Sweet have in common that we are out here single in these streets, in this
Lord,
street, single.
for a
Hallelujah.
long
Single
time.
as $1 bill. Amen. Amen. And there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing
Hallelujah.
wrong with it. Ain't
Ain't
nothing
nothing
wrong with
wrong with
us. Hallelujah. No,
Hallelujah.
but our topic today is going to deal with something that's personal to all three of us and personal actually to a lot of men and women in the church. And
it. Yeah.
it is dating in the church.
Oh
And
my.
we want,
Lord.
oh my, and we want to pose something. I have some stats for us, just about one of the things that I think is the initial barrier to dating in the church, which is just sheer numbers game. I went on the Institute of Family Studies.org, and what they did was they took a poll where under different denominations, Catholic, Protestant, they even had a category called HBC that stood for historically Black Christians,
Wow.
um,
Mhm.
and categorized them and looked at the numbers of per every 100 women, how many men. So I'm going to read off my paper here. As far as evangelical Protestants, for every and this is from 2014, by the way. This study I
Oh,
couldn't
them
find a
some
more
old.
current study. It was from
Okay.
2014. Um, for every 100 women in the evangelical Protestant church, there are 93 men. In the HBCs of the
Lord.
church, hallelujah, not to be confused with HBCUs, the historically Black Christian denominations,
Mhm.
it is less than 50 men per every 100 women.
Help us, Lord.
And I want that part to let that
Can
sink
you
in.
repeat that again, ma'am?
Certainly, you want just the part about
For us
HBCs,
black folks.
Yeah.
the black folks, the blacks. Amongst historically Black Christians, for every 100 women in the church, and they did this as regular attending church members, so at least once a week, um, it's less than 50 men per every 100 women.
Mm.
Okay. Now keep that in your mind. And then
Good
also,
gracious.
according to a survey done in USA Today, they wrote that women outnumber men in every major denomination. So black, white, Catholic, Protestant, and they are 20 to 20, and the women are 20 to 25% more likely to attend worship service at least once a week. Okay. So we have those couple of stats and we have those numbers and we have our initial thing, which is just a sheer numbers game. And I'm going to pose a question to y'all to get the conversation rolling. And I want to ask this like, okay, in the midst of what you just heard, having in your mind and even having in mind the dynamic in your own churches. I'm going to use myself as an example. My church is not even a 50 to 100 because that would mean for every whatever your number is, it would be half of that would be men in your church. I come
Mhm.
from a small congregation. I'll say with adults and children, it may be about 18 people if everybody come, and it's not even half of that would be 9 and 9, and there's not 9 men. Okay,
Mm.
so mine's even more dismal than that in my own congregation. But like this is yeah.
Dismal.
I mean, I had to use dismal, abysmal.
Mhm.
At core. So based on those stats, what is it that keeps us, in light of the data, keeps you? I'm saying it's a personal question. Keep you keeping hope to continue to desire marriage and relationship. So, in light of the stats, what is keeping you to have hope that you will eventually be married, to keep hope to even desire marriage and want to have hope for relationships?
Keep hope
Somebody
alive.
go.
Keep hope alive.
But what is it? What keeps hope alive? Why you not looking at the stats and saying, "Well, I quit and I become a nun"?
Ah, because I don't think God would be that cruel.
Because God is a good and just God.
That
He's a
at
good
some
and just
point,
Hallelujah. And He
guy.
gives us the desires of our hearts. Well,
my
look,
Lord.
y'all want me to start? Because since I
Yeah,
got
go
this,
ahead.
I can start because I had a time. I probably have more time to think about this question since I had it.
Okay.
Um, as for me, um, what I have learned is not to focus on the negative. And what I mean by that, like these statements are saying what basically in our eyes, that's a negative, that's a barrier, that's a reason why we wouldn't be married, or why it's likely to say that we wouldn't end up in a relationship. And I know better than to focus on those things, because in my mind, I know I can spit off about 10 people that I know who are happily married, like
Mm-hmm.
in my circle. So
Mm-hmm.
we got to be careful as single Christians, not just to read the articles, not just to look at the data. Y'all think about it. Think
It's
about the
always
election
negative.
that we had when the 45th president was chosen.
Hmm.
All the data said he ain't winning.
I don't even think he thought he was going to
He
win.
didn't think he was going to win. And I'm only bringing up our president for this fact. Them stats, after that, CNN was scratching their head. They was having meetings about their meetings and why the data wasn't right. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
And so we've got to take that same posture to say this is just collected data. And in
Hmm.
an instant, you can meet your mate, you can meet your mate, I can meet my mate. And
Hmm.
we have evidence around us. I have parents who were married until my mother departed this life in 2018. From the age of 21 until my mom went to glory. It happens, and all it takes is meeting. You only got to find one mate, you
This
know,
is true.
prayerfully, and me, this will be my second go round, bless God. It's all good. But, it's just God doing it, and knowing that He's in the midst of it. That's kind of how I keep hope. I don't focus on this kind of data.
I got you. Yeah, because I mean, it's always negative, especially for us. I think I was talking to you about this too, even with the coronavirus. I'm like, why all of a sudden, Lord, all the stats is pointing in our direction. And it just seems like
Right,
every time it's like there's always that with African Americans.
right.
Bless their hearts,
They,
they
yes,
struggling.
right.
It's like, Lord,
That's right.
and so, but like you said, like I try not to focus on that. I try to focus on walking in my purpose, but then at the same time trying to maintain some type of balance, because I understand, like, because growing up I wasn't the type of girl who had her wedding planned and who had the ring picked out. I
Mhm.
just was not that type of person. I've always been very goal oriented and focused and driven, and so I've always been trying to pursue something or trying to achieve something. But then, honey, as the age continued to grow, it was like, wait a minute, Lord. I mean, not that I haven't been dating in between this, because I have, but as far as, dating to a point of marriage and, that sort of thing, that hasn't happened for me yet, as far as having someone that didn't turn out to be a joker that I was able to, go further with or whatever. But yeah, but as you get older, and even when it comes to the whole church dynamic, I know I've been in both the black church as well as like a predominantly white church, and I currently go to a predominantly white church now. It's it's mixed and multicultural, but what I have seen is that their culture when it comes to marriage is completely different from ours. Like, honey, these mugs is getting married at like 19, 20, 21. And I'm like, what in the world? That's a little bit, that's pretty young. But for them, it's not. That's a part of their culture. But I know when it comes to the black family dynamic, that's not something that a lot of us think about early on, and that had a lot of that has to do with some systematic things that have happened, and
Mhm.
the whole broken family dynamic, going all the way back to slavery. I'm going deep, but as far as the whole family unit and the breakdown of that, and kind of what we have today, and women kind of shifting more into the power role or the power position or the head of the household, because our men weren't there, and then here comes mass incarceration taking our men again. And so it just
Mhm.
kind of led to a systematic breakdown, and that's kind of where we have ourselves and why we have the numbers that we have. So it kind of goes back to that. But you know I'm optimistic in that. Like I said, I don't get caught up in what the data is, because like you said, we have examples all around us of people who are married, who are happily married, and and that it is possible, no matter how bleak and dismal, like you said, things it may look, that it is possible. And so I just try to improve myself. It's kind of the mentality that I've kind of taken on is, okay, what are the things that I want to accomplish before I do get married? Because the saying is true that you attract who you are. And so that, so basically what I've been trying to do is better myself, so that so that I do attract somebody who's more on my level and wavelength as it relates to dating and marriage, and being, on one accord and equally yoked, and, all that good stuff. So, and I don't want to be married just for the sake of being married. Like, I'd rather just
Mhm.
stay single, because that marriage is the most important decision outside of giving your life to Christ that you will ever make.
That's
And
right.
it's one that ought not be taken lightly.
Lightly, it ought not.
Okay.
Right. Somebody say ought not.
Ought not.
And I've never been the one that just want to have somebody just so I can take pictures and be on Facebook or Instagram, and just to say that I have somebody,
Mm-hmm.
so, but those are the things, Lord, I done said a whole bunch. I don't even know what the
Keep
question was
talking.
again. But anyway.
No, no. You're on track. Basically, it was how you keep hope, and and
Yeah,
and just your perspective of how you even continue to desire in light of the stats. So you
yeah,
on track. You on track.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, sweet. You gonna jump in?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in. I feel like, for one thing, I know that the data is pretty old that you just stated.
Yeah.
So, I don't
About
know.
six,
It
about 6 years ago. But
Yeah,
but mhm.
so it's 6 years ago. So not basing everything off of that data. I'm sure, truth be told, it could be even worse if you get something even more current.
Yeah.
But to that point, as well as to Holly's point regarding data and data as it pertains to African Americans, I think some of that stuff, some of that you just have to take with a grain of salt, because it can be a little skewed. So I am not necessarily a numbers person. I do not
Oh,
information.
okay.
Huh?
You had
Oh,
froze for
I'm
a little
sorry.
bit, but keep going.
Oh,
Oh.
I'm sorry. I normally don't seek out that type of data or that type of information. So I try, that definitely isn't something that influences. I believe what keeps hope alive for myself is kind of something that you already said, which is I've seen examples,
Mhm.
real life, tangible people that are part of my tribe that I've known for X amount of years, some 20 years, some less, that are happily married with kids, living life. I've seen people get married later on in life and still be happily married. And so I've tried to take the posture, and this is something that's kind of probably recently within the past 5 years, because I, like Holly, was the same way. I never, but like some young ladies are conditioned that your vein of existence is marriage and being a mother. Although I do feel like culturally in society we do condition our young girls to be nurturers, and that's
Mhm.
fine because that's how God made us. But I was more of the type of person when it came to relationship and marriage and children. I was very matter of fact about it. So it was never something that I thought about or pondered about. I just, in my brain, I just assumed that I would go to college, get a degree, meet somebody there, fall in love, get married, have kids. And so even after college was over, I still was kind of like in my early 20s. So I still wasn't like, oh my God, I have to hurry up and get married. I just kind of was living life. And then 35 came and I had a pre midlife crisis where I was like, oh shoot, I'm not married. I don't have kids. What's going
I
on?
see.
And so, what gives me hope, back to the question is, and this is something that I've had to grow into and mature into and contend for. And sometimes it's a weekly contend, and sometimes it's a daily contend, and sometimes it's a monthly contend. And that is that the desire for companionship was placed in my heart by the Father. And so if he placed that desire there for me, then he has to honor that desire that he's placed there. And so it's really just trusting and believing that part of the plan will be marriage and kids. Um, that's it. And some days it's like, I don't know, Lord, I'm getting older. Did you forget about me, Jesus?
Mm-hmm.
It's like my song. I wrote a whole song, not if but when, but when is when coming. So that's why I said that I have to contend for it, because it's something that I have to be intentional in, trusting that if I really have submitted my life to him and I really trust his will and plan for my life, then he's never late.
Yeah.
And that's
Amen.
hard.
Oh,
That's
come on.
hard. Like, real talk, that's hard.
When you feel like you late.
Yeah, when you feel like, Jesus, did you forget? Did you see the
Mm-hmm.
clock?
Let me
And
pose this question. I'm sorry, finish your thought, but I
yeah,
got
that
something
was
I want
it.
to hit you with.
That was it.
All right. So in light of what we just said, okay, what role do you all think that the church plays in having some intentionality in taking single Christians or aiding us from single to marriage? Because in the Bible, biblically speaking, going from single to married was very intentional. Abraham sought a wife for his son Isaac. There were middlemen. There was people to go and assist in the courting process. Now we know we live in a different society, kind of culture over everything, so it won't look exactly like it looked in the Bible, but the truth still remains. There was some intentionality, because I feel like how we go from being a 20 year old, 20 something year old woman, single and carefree, to looking up and we're 40 and still single, is because we're waiting for something to just organically happen. But if the men aren't there, then they're not there. So what role do you feel like the church should play in facilitating something so that single Christian males and females can be in one playing field or be in one area?
I, I would like to start by answering that question, and I'll make sure that I'm mindful of time, so Holly can jump in, because I know she has something to say as well. But I think there are two things. So, and this is just my own personal opinion. I'm personally not a fan of singles ministries at churches. And dare I say they're trash. But
Oh my.
Woe unto the singles
They are
ministry.
well,
trash.
they're trash.
I sound like trash.
Stop.
I'm
Stop
sorry.
that.
Okay.
I'm gonna knock you out. So now, to add some context to that, not all of them are trash. I'm just
Mhm.
saying, from my own personal experiences, I don't feel like when I did participate in singles ministries, whenever there was, that it was very fruitful for me. One
Honey,
of the
nothing but a
reasons,
bunch of women.
a bunch of women, that's the
Amen.
Yeah.
first thing. So we all like, what up, girl? What up, girl? And then, and so the other thing was, and this may be slightly a little bit not devil's
Let it out.
advocate, but you know, we are taught that marriage is the end goal. Like that,
Hmm.
society and the church, if
Yeah.
you're single, everybody's trying to get you to the point of marriage. Now,
Hmm.
I know all of us, because we're all friends, we do desire that, but I
Hmm.
do feel like some people don't desire that, and
That's true.
their life is very content being the single person that they are, but to
Well,
Hmm.
the
hold on. Let me
point
let
of
me let me let me interject now. But remember, we ain't talking about the ones who don't want marriage. We're
okay.
talking about people who are desiring to be married, males and females.
So,
Mhm.
okay, so to stick to the point of those that are designed to be married and the role that the church plays, I feel like more than a singles ministry, what the because you've already stated it, society wise, we're not doing arranged marriages, not here in these United States of America. That's very
Right.
rare. So
Mm-hmm.
that's not even a model for what we're looking at in the 21st century church, Black, white, multicultural, whatever it is. But I do feel like the role that the church plays for those men that are present, because we've already established, we already at a deficit. So for the men that are present, I don't think the role of the church necessarily to play matchmaker. I think the role of the church is to teach the Bible and to
Yeah.
teach it well
Mm-hmm.
in a
Mm-hmm.
way that men understand their role and why it's important for marriage and why they do need a help, and that they're established within themselves so that they can seek out.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're teaching Bible, everything that Jesus did centered around community.
Yeah.
What is a community? It's a family. It's a man. It's a
Mm-hmm.
Family.
woman.
Yes.
It's us on this podcast. We're family, and we're not. None of us are related by blood outside of the blood of Jesus. So I think that the major role of the church is to teach men and women about our roles as individuals, as believers, and what that looks like in the grand scheme of the community of God and the family of God. Because if you teach for those people that do desire marriage, if you teach Bible and teach it good, your pastor isn't going to have to encourage you to marry that girl. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
propose. You know what I'm saying? He's
Mm-hmm.
not going to have to encourage Julia to make an honest woman out of Shaniqua or Valerie or
Mm-hmm.
Jane or
Mm-hmm.
Becky, whoever. Um, that's going to be something that's in him because he understands the value of family and relationship. So to me, the goal of the church is to teach.
Okay.
All right. Okay,
Yeah, I
Heidi.
feel like the goal of the church is to teach as well, but a lot of this stuff is family of origin. Like if you, depending on what was modeled to you growing
Mm-hmm.
up, is going to be
Yep.
what you value.
Yep.
So if mama never got married or you never saw your dad, commit, or so
Mm-hmm.
that's going to play on what follows as an adult. And so I don't know what the church can actually do to, I mean, I guess they could, have events and stuff, but like we were saying earlier, half of the time the men's do not show up. Okay.
That's right.
Because I feel like, they may feel like they're going to get pounced on if they do come. And that's the other side of this conversation that we definitely intend to address. We are going to have some men on here to have the second part of this conversation because we want to hear from them to see
Amen.
what their
Yeah.
perspective is as it relates to what's going on in the church as it relates to dating and marriage. But going back to your point, okay, sweet, you off the screen, come on back. Okay, cool.
Battery was phone side. Sorry.
Yeah, Lord. But anyway, I guess the church can set up, things that are necessary. And like Sweet said, some teaching is, helpful in that regard, but then a lot of that happens at home and in the family. And then it's also what we as women are willing to put up with. Because I believe in some respects, we have kind of created our own problem
Mm-hmm.
based on maybe not keeping certain standards because maybe we felt like, well, I gotta drop them if I'm gonna have a man, I'm gonna have to do X, Y, and Z. And so that's kind of has perpetuated a lot of the issues as well. But Lord, I'm going off on a tangent again.
I
What
would
was I talking about?
say,
You're
oh,
good.
no, you were good.
Oh
That
yeah.
was good.
But yeah, so I just feel like, and then I feel like it's our responsibility as, because I think I had this conversation with you, Sweet, before that, where I pretty much came to the conclusion that I'm the reason why I'm single. So I had to
Absolutely. Yeah, that's
come
true. I
to
agree.
that. I had to come to that conclusion because, I haven't really, as I should, really been intentional about, being with a spouse, and, or, you kind of put up those walls and those defense mechanisms, and I know early on, it was, well, I don't need a man. But then later on, it was like, Lord Jesus, yes, I do. And so,
Hey,
so
glory.
as a young girl, growing up, you kind of, the whole woman liberation movement, it's like,
Yeah, adapted to the
and then
culture.
when you get into a relationship and you get hurt, then you build up more walls and more defenses, and so that even the more stops you from really digging into a relationship. And then you got work and you got career, and then you start looking at that, and then sometimes it hurts too much to, when you're in those moments where you really want companionship, it hurts too much to think about it, and so you do use work or achieving things
Yeah, yeah.
as a
But
mask or as a crutch, to keep from, focusing on that. And so that kind of leads you down, a lonely road. And so,
mhm.
but so it's kind of a culmination of all of those things. I do feel like the church can assist, but it's also the individual's responsibility to do the work, to work out their own soul salvation, to do whatever is necessary to position themselves
And I think,
for a
Okay,
relationship. So, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead, sweet, and then I want to
oh,
add something. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I was going to say too, as it pertains to the church and my rant about the teaching aspect, to be a little bit more specific to what I meant by that. Because I'm glad that we're going to bring on the fellas to give their commentary and input as well. But particularly when you're talking about the family dynamics, because I totally get that and believe that that's a huge portion. When I speak of teaching, I'm more so talking about the discipleship component.
Yeah.
Because if we're discipling, if we're being discipled as women, and if we're being discipled as men, and we're being discipled well, then some of those inconsistencies or lack that we may have experienced in childhood can
Mm,
come out through that discipleship relationship to
okay.
help as well. So yeah.
Well, I want
Yeah.
to add a little bit to what both of you said. I didn't disagree with either of you. I feel a little bit of both of what you are saying, but I want to put something back on the church. I do believe it part of our singleness. We own it. It's our own. We submit it to Jesus at Jesus's feet. And it's something that we have to make sure we're not looking at as any kind of handicap. It's just a stage in life that we're in. But back to desiring marriages and then going back to the church as far as facilitation, I feel like it's an underlying issue there. I feel
Mm,
like the whole disparity on the fact that you have 100 women and less than 50 men per 100 women is some responsibility that needs to go upon the church. Now, this is just my own personal opinion.
okay.
I feel like I agree with Sweet. It has to do with teaching and discipleship. I feel like men are not even being witnessed to at the same level that women
True.
get witnessed to. I feel like women, because we do for whatever reason, and then let's be clear, if it was not for women, the church would be dead, 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 dead in
Dead,
America.
dead, dead.
That,
Just
that,
want to
that,
put
that.
that out there. Just
So
want to put it out
true.
there and roll on back. Come on back. So the thing is, because for whatever reason, we have a more emotional, soulish connection. We feel like
Yeah.
our soul is important. So that's a
Hmm.
part of our care. We want our children to know about the Lord and everything. And not that men don't, but for whatever reason, they don't connect it to church and community.
Mm.
A lot of men that I know, I work in a very male atmosphere at my job. A lot of those men know about God, know scripture, but almost all of them that know of the Lord, respect that and believe that, God is God and Jesus is his son, don't go to church on any kind of regular basis.
That's
They have
true.
no connection to any kind of regular teaching. And my thing is the church, I think, feel like they go for the easy kill. And when they go
Mm.
out there looking at young men, they're busy worrying about whether their pants are sagging or too tight or how many tattoos they have instead of going out there and having a heart for the
Yeah.
men. And I hate to come off harsh or hard, but it's a disconnect. The God started off with a family, husband, wife,
Mm,
told them to be fruitful and multiply.
oh,
And I feel like even the level of lack of attention to teaching, as to Sweet's point, about marriage and family in the church. You don't have to just have wait till you get married couples in the church to teach about marriage. How
mm,
you get married people in the church is to teach about marriage.
that's
You
true.
know, is to teach the men that what that it's not good to be alone. If you desire marriage, if you feel like God has put that on your heart, that your sister is not someone to please you sexually, but you don't have covenant with. To
Mm-hmm.
teach those kind of things, to teach the
Oh
women,
my.
that, yeah, to teach the women,
Oh,
that if you want to be a mother, you don't have to be a baby mother. You're supposed to be a wife first.
come
We
Oh,
used to
on.
sing that
Oh
nursery
my
rhyme:
God.
first
Jesus.
come love, then come marriage, then come the baby carriage. And please know, I'm not coming from any judgment.
Yeah.
Y'all, the world don't know, but I'm a single mom. I'm a single mom. Hashtag no judgment. I was married, not married now. It's all good. But there's got to be something where us as a church, we're going to be held accountable for a lot of things that I think we're thinking ain't no big deal.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so I do put some responsibility on the church. And when I say facilitate, I don't mean arrange marriages, but I mean even like Sweet's point, make disciples, teach. And when you teach, come into disciple. First thing that the world gives you at a young age. My son watches Power Rangers, and through the Power Rangers and the fighting and the mighty morphosizing and all of that, they got little Ranger, Blue Ranger, and Pink Ranger, a boyfriend and girlfriend. They like each other. The world will show aspects of relationship without marriage, and it
Mm-hmm.
starts at an early age.
Yeah.
So we've got to talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
because people, the first connect that people have, usually, unfortunately, they end up having sexual intimacies, and then
Mm-hmm.
getting into understanding male and female dynamics. It
Yeah.
comes out of order, and it comes at a very early age. So if we don't take the forefront on that, I feel like the church has just kind of let down a little bit in that area. So that's my piece. I know I went on, but
I mean, and I didn't want to, not put any responsibility on the church. I definitely do agree that there is a lack of, a teaching, or either a lot of the teaching is geared towards women, and
right,
this is why you single,
unbalanced,
and
which we gonna get
it.
that.
That's
Well,
We
yeah,
another
gonna get that.
podcast.
that yeah,
Yeah,
that's another topic that we're going to talk about. But there's an imbalance there, and so and I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's why, if it's because as the pastor is preaching, he gonna have to step on his own toes if he do preach to the men. And if that's why some of them, shy away from that. Not all of them, I don't want to put every pastor in that category, but a lot of messages are geared towards women, probably primarily because we do make up most of the church. So it's just
right.
kind of like natural for them to, put that towards us as it relates to the desire for marriage and everything, and that sort of thing. But I was just, going back to your point that I wasn't saying, that we shouldn't teach, because we do
Right.
need more discipleship, and I think just overall, men, when it comes to that whole submitting to other men, there's an
Oh,
issue
that's a
there.
good point,
Yeah.
Holly.
Yeah,
Yes.
because of the whole fatherless generation, and if you're not
Hmm.
used to being submitted to someone else, then it's hard for you to submit. And and men, their dynamic is, they is for them to be leaders. And so I know that that probably is an issue, if you don't know how to submit, that can kind of become an issue, because you are used to being a leader, and you don't, it's like, okay, this man gonna tell me what to do, and this, that, and the third. So,
Right.
but yeah, but that'll be something that we, go more into as the men are on here, talking. They can kind of speak more into that. But
Yeah, I want to make sure our male followers, our men subscribers, please, please, please engage us, because we want to hear from
yeah,
you, those in
please.
and out of the church.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
We
absolutely.
really want to hear your voice on this, because we're just speaking as women, but there are men in the church who, believe it or not, are saying that they're having a hard time finding wives.
Yep.
Mhm.
And I
Of
see
course,
that
we
all the
like
time, and I'm
houseway.
like, how in the world is that possible? But
The
Hey,
ratio, the numbers say.
I'm telling you.
I think too, like to go back to the original question that you asked about um, how do you keep hope and uh,
Yeah.
keep hope alive
Mm,
when it seems so dire. I think
Yeah.
another thing is the relationship that exists between me and the father,
Yeah.
where there's a father daughter relationship, but then there's a friend relationship, and
mhm.
so um, that just comes with intimacy,
Yeah.
and that intimacy has been built over time. So when I jokingly say, "Did you forget about me?" Um, I'm not saying that God in his infinite wisdom has made mistakes because I'm still single. I'm saying that as a daughter talking to her father because there's relationship. But I'm also saying that as a daughter talking to her father, that I know that his purpose and his will for me is good and great,
Yeah.
and that he's not going to allow me to be in anything that is not the best that he has for me.
Yeah.
Now, I can go out here and be reckless,
Mhm.
because here's the other factor that none of us have said yet, or Holly and I haven't said, or you too, April. I'm Holly kind of hinted to it, but as far as like, I could have been married.
Yeah.
That's not the
Right.
issue here. I could have been married
It's the
with
right
True.
one.
kids. It's like, who would
Yeah.
I have married though?
Mhm.
Like I
Right.
could have,
The
if it's for the
Joker.
sake of saying I'm married,
Mhm.
I've had proposals. I've had people be like, "You the one," and
Mhm.
Right.
I could have went with that too and be like, "I am, aren't I?" But I knew this is not what the Lord has said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that may have been because I wasn't in a position, I wasn't thinking about it. Neither one of us was ready to be in a covenantal type relationship. So one of the things that does really help me as it pertains to keeping hope alive regarding being single and approaching, 41 and still seemingly no prospects, is that he has a plan for my life, and he knows what that is, even if I'm not always fully aware of what that plan is. And
Yeah.
because he's good, and because his knowledge is infinite, I trust that he's going to honor the desires. And that's where faith comes in, because
Mhm.
I don't see it.
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
not dating anybody. Um, no, well, that's not true, but nobody's DM me, but that somebody had.
Ah.
I'm not
Come
dating. No,
on
I'm
now.
not. No, I'm not
Light up
dating
DM.
anybody.
Mhm.
I'm not dating anybody, but I'm saying, my DM is not being flooded. Ain't nobody
Mhm.
sneaking. Ain't nobody trying to sneak and holler. But I still believe that because God is who He is and His promises are true, that He will honor that desire that I have, that I feel like He placed there,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
and that gives me hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amen.
It does. Just to kind of piggyback off of that, definitely, having hope. And I don't want singles to think that something is wrong with them either, because
Right,
Lord have
right.
mercy, Jesus,
Oh,
from society, from your family,
Come on.
society,
come on, family.
everywhere you look, it's like if you're not married, something is wrong with you, especially once you get to a certain age. That is what is perceived. That
Not
is what
true.
is conveyed
Yeah, yeah.
upon us every minute of every second of every hour. And I'm tired of it, okay? But I just don't want singles to think that their single season is a curse,
That's
or
good,
that
Holly.
something is wrong with them, because nothing
Right.
is wrong with you. When it's time for it to happen, it will happen. As you position yourself, as you prepare yourself, God will begin to position people around you. So I definitely don't want anybody to lose hope as you're waiting in your singleness. And I know it can get hard, my Lord. We all have needs, my Lord.
Jesus.
I'm just gonna say it. But
Keep it 100. Keep it
but
100.
yeah, just know that nothing is wrong with you. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. You're exactly where you're meant to be. Because I know for me, that used to always be an issue for me. I would, just with everything in my life, it feels like I've had to wait, for it, or whatnot. And I've seen other people around me, you know, seemingly kind of go ahead of me, and I'm kind of still like, well,
Mhm.
Lord, feeling like a late bloomer, if you will,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I just don't want anybody to feel like, because if it was meant for me to already be married, I would be married, and God has an appointed time for everything. And just understanding that nothing is wrong with you, nothing is missing, nothing is lacking. Just continue to seek God, continue to walk in your purpose, continue to position yourself, continue to better yourself. And I believe, we gonna all believe together, that this thing
Yes,
gonna
Yes.
Lord
happen for us.
Jesus.
Amen.
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 And I think too, Holly, to add to that point, like looking back over the years, um, there has been a period of time where I didn't even have to have hope that I would, or it wasn't even a concern for me about being in a relationship, because truth be told, I was too emotionally jacked up to be in a relationship.
Yeah,
And
gotcha.
so some of that, in taking care of yourself, is processing through that,
Hmm.
processing through the hurt, processing through the upbringing, processing through the things, because when you marry
Yeah.
someone, you're bringing all of your bags
Come on.
to that, and
Come
it's
on.
not fair for that person to have done their work and you haven't done yours. And
Yeah.
I think,
Right.
we're always evolving, we're always becoming better, but for many years, it, like I said, I didn't need the hope that I would be married, because it wasn't even a desire. It was just something,
Yeah.
like I said, I casually knew, oh, this is just going to happen one day. And then
Mm-hmm.
once I transgressed past it, I casually knew it was going to happen. The next portion was, daughter, you need to work out some things. So let's
Mm-hmm.
wait on this again. Now I'm in a place where I'm feeling like I've worked through, and now I'm like,
I'm
now when
ready, Lord.
Jesus, now when Jesus. So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I really think that we've had a good round conversation. Um, I don't know where we are as far as we're good as far as time, but yeah, but I feel like this is a time for me. We can still add some things we want to, but I want to just make sure we get to the underlying truth. What I've heard from both of you when it comes to keeping hope and faith, I love what Holly was saying, about singleness. And this goes for men and women. This ain't even gender specific, because there are single men out there who are just wondering why they haven't been able to secure a wife or whatever. Not probably the wrong word, secure a wife, but anyway, you know, like secure the bag. But yes, but why they have not made it to the marital relationship, but there is nothing wrong with you. And as far as dating in the church, just remember that God is the head of the church. He
Yeah.
loves us, and there is nothing wrong with your singleness. That it's not a disease or disorder, and God is fully aware of your desires to be parents, to be have someone to live your life out with, to walk purpose out with. But one scripture that I think that came to my mind when thinking about this subject is, whatever things are good, lovely, and of a good report,
Mm-hmm.
meditate on those things. Don't meditate on loneliness. Don't meditate on what
Yeah.
you don't have. You
Mm-hmm.
think about what you desire. You
Yeah.
desire to be married, and in the back of your mind say, I'll be married one day. But right now, I'm living my best life.
Yeah.
Come
I'm gonna
on,
live. I'm
Come
living
on.
for God.
living my best life.
I'm yes, living my best life, living for God.
Yeah.
I'm working out, like we said, I'm working some personal things out, becoming the person that I'll feel good about trying to demand something from my mate, because
Come
I know I
on.
did the work on me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Come
to
on.
just really get my skills up, to do things. Y'all know I done become a whole gardener, farmer,
You really
Come
out
on
here in
have.
these
now.
streets. I am
Do it. I want
I
a
have been
garden too.
working on me. Okay, I got
Yeah.
a whole, I can, hold it down. My husband and I, what I'm saying, he ain't even got to worry about, certain things. So we got groceries in the backyard. Praise God. You know, see, I'm trying to figure out how to help out. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, just and on that ending on that lighthearted note. But I think this has been a wonderful episode, ladies. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I mean, just keep hope alive. No,
Keep hope alive.
Yes,
yep.
keep
And
hope
Mm-hmm.
alive. And churches teach, teach, teach. Go ahead, Keith.
and
You
Yeah.
were gonna say something?
and I would say to add to keeping hope alive, and what Holly said, man, live.
Come on.
Yes,
Live,
live.
Come on.
live, 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 live.
Yeah.
Because here's
Yes,
the other reality. Once you get married, life is going to be changed. It's going to be different.
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't wait for marriage. There were things,
Come
I love
on.
to travel, and I haven't traveled to the extent of my love for it. But there was, I had these places that I consider honeymoon places. And so it's like for my honeymoon, I want to go here. And that has not happened yet. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to plan this trip to go to Fiji because why am I waiting?
come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I encourage people. I encourage singles. Like Holly said, you not have the bubonic plague. Live your life. Do the things that you've always wanted to do. Travel, experience new things, learn something new, go back to school. All of those things, because you have the time to do it.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. And just remember that you were created for purpose. Marriage is a benefit. God has
Yeah.
given you a purpose, and that's what He sent you here to fulfill. And when He sends marriage, that's going to be a benefit added. So do what you've been sent here to do, and all
Okay.
those
Right.
other things will be added unto
Come
you.
on
Come
now.
Oh,
on.
that
Preach,
rhymes.
preacher.
Come on,
First,
somebody. Amen.
yes, seek ye first the kingdom of God, and
Preach,
Yep.
all other
preacher.
There you
things shall
go.
be added, and you'll be able to. And look, if God's in that marriage, you'll be able to continue to fulfill purpose
Right,
through that
right.
Yes,
marriage.
there you go.
Through that
Through the
marriage, it'll
marriage,
just be a
it'll be an
continuation
upgrade.
of
There
fulfilling
you go.
purpose. That's
Yep.
right.
Level
That's
up.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Level up.
Yep.
All right.
All
All
right.
right, ladies. Well,
Awesome.
this has been another episode of Truth Revealed. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Number
Yay.
2.
Number 2. All right. We'll see y'all next Friday.
All right. Bye, guys.
See y'all.
Bye.